Katie Carr. I can't wait. This week we're going to one of our favourite places in the world, Italy.
Italy! And it's also set in another one of our favourite places in the world, which is Australia, because 3 Gold Coins by Josephine Moon is by an Australian author.
Yes, Brisbane girl meets Trevi Fountain meets gorgeous Italian man. I mean, what more could you want?
I love her romantic hero,
Matteo!
Oh, I love that book.
Yes, it's more than just a romance, wasn't it?
You're so right.
I think, the issues like domestic violence, aging and mental illness were handled really sensitively.
Yeah, it was really well done. I really loved the book.
So, Matteo owned a goat farm and a cheesery. So, are we going to be eating goat's cheese?
I know that I adore goat cheese, but I thought I should give our digestive systems a rest. And so now I made us a very delicious and very healthy Tuscan white bean soup.
Oh, sounds divine. Well, perhaps we'll lose some weight.
Not with all the champagne we've been drinking.
Yeah, that's true.
Tonight I'm cooking a traditional Italian dish inspired by 3 Gold Coins, which is a new book by Josephine Moon, and it is set in Tuscany. So I'm going to make Tuscan white bean soup, which has been made in Tuscany for absolute centuries. Michelangelo would have eaten this dish. Leonardo da Vinci would have eaten this dish, and it is incredibly easy to make and absolutely delicious. So now I'm just sauteing the leeks with some garlic, and then I will just throw in all the other chopped vegetables and just give them a quick saute as well. And then we add our stock. And then serve when we're ready with some Italian bread and some pecorino cheese. We are pretending that we are in Tuscany, Italy tonight because we are welcoming Josephine Moon, the author of 3 Gold Coins, which is set in beautiful Tuscany. I can't wait for her to come. I enjoyed the book so much.
Yes, and the table is looking beautiful.
Thank you.
So it's actually a replica of the cover.
That's right. We have tried to copy the cover of the book.
Lovely. Oh, look, here's Josephine now.
Oh, Joe! Hi!
Hi, how are you?
Welcome!
Lovely to see you.
Yeah, so lovely
Thank you
to
for having
see
me.
you. Come and sit down.
Thank you.
What do you think of our beautiful Tuscan
It's so
setting?
gorgeous. So much like the cover. It's beautiful.
White tablecloth, yellow roses, some beautiful bay trees. I couldn't quite manage olive trees.
As close as you can get to Italy, not without being there.
That's right. Well, that's what a book like yours is like, isn't it? We're armchair travellers.
That's right, yes.
Wouldn't be Italy without a little vino. Shall I pour you some
Please.
red wine?
It smells beautiful.
Yeah, it does. Well, Kate was just telling me that this was the best red wine they had in the shop.
Only the best for you, Joe.
Lovely. What a great salesman.
So, there you go.
Thank you so much.
And I think I'll just
Cheers.
top us up.
Yes, we've been.
It's like we haven't had enough wine yet. Never had enough wine. There we go. Beautiful. Doesn't look gorgeous.
Cheers.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome.
Cheers.
Lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And it was so lovely to have a chance to read your book. It was the first book of yours that I'd ever read, so it was. I'm looking forward to all your others now.
Oh, thank you.
Just perfect. You're perfectly composed, and it went exactly where I wanted it to go. So.
Gorgeously romantic, and lots about food, which we love.
There is a lot of food in there. People always say my books make them very hungry when they read them. So the book opens with Lara Foxley, who has fled her family home in Brisbane, and she's fleeing from a dark and difficult past, and she's found herself in the streets of Rome, heading to the Trevi Fountain. And she sees an elderly man up ahead and he's struggling in the streets, and she's just really captivated by him and feels great concern for him. And so he does need her help, and she ends up taking him home to his 17th century villa in Tuscany and quickly becoming his carer. And so her adventures start from there. But that thing that she fled from in Brisbane is going to track her down. So she will have to face some
there were still
her
shadows
demons
there.
there.
That's one of the things I loved about the book. Actually, was the the lightness of touch with the comedy and the romance and the beautiful food in Tuscany. But then the sense of there being real issues at stake. Real darkness in the story.
And real issues to talk about. So there was quite a bit of gritty stuff in there. What inspired you to write that novel and to juxtapose the dark and the light like that?
Well, it's funny, I actually tried to avoid writing all those sort of darker issues to start with. And the book had sort of told me that's what it wanted to do, and I said, no, quite out loud, no, not doing that. And then realised I'd made a huge mistake and had to pull it all apart and write it the way I wanted to.
You must always do what the book tells you
to do.
It was
a big lesson to learn.
We are slaves to the story. It's our job to do as we're told.
Yes, it was definitely a hard lesson to learn. All that rewriting was not fun.
It's one of my favourite parts of the book. It makes it seem so real, and I love the fact that your heroine is flawed. She's not perfect and beautiful and kind of Hollywood starlet. She's a real woman with real life problems.
Yes, and so brave, I think.
So brave.
Keeps getting knocked down and getting it back up again, which is, admire that.
It's a bit like writing a book, isn't it?
It is a bit like writing a book. That's right.
And I suppose then the moral of that tale is that always listen to the book. Is that?
Always listen to the story.
Yes, that was a hard lesson for me to learn, but I think I've got it now. I hope I have.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's just one of those things, isn't it? Every single book that you write, you learn something new.
Absolutely.
About writing.
Absolutely.
So this is your third book?
This is my fourth novel.
Fourth novel.
Yeah. So, and I'm working on my fifth at the moment.
So has your creative process changed over the course of writing these books?
Yeah, definitely, and to a large extent because I got my agent when my son was 6 weeks old, and so at every stage of his life, the way I've worked has changed as well. But I'm definitely getting braver, I think, as a writer, and certainly that book tested me a lot and really pushed me into new areas. So I hope I can take that and take it into the next one.
Well, I found it really surprising, and it was a really pleasant surprise. I was so looking forward to having a gorgeous, romantic comedy set in Tuscany with lots and lots of things about food, and you absolutely delivered on that front. But I think that extra edge to it, that extra sense of reality to it, made it so much more real and made Lara
to another level.
so much more sympathetic, I think, as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a lovely compliment. Thank you.
The question I'd really like to ask you is how much your characters are drawn from real life, or how much from imagination. Everyone just seemed to ring so true, and I was wondering if that's because they are real people.
Well, in this book, I was in Tuscany on a writing retreat and met a lot of amazing people over there, and people do say, is Matteo real? There was a Matteo, and I met him for maybe an hour. So he's definitely the inspiration for the character of Matteo, but I mean, obviously I don't know anything about that actual man and his life. So he's the spark for sure that I took some sneaky photos and, drooled over those a little bit because he's very dishy.
He is
And
indeed.
But also flawed.
Yes.
It's a small flaw, but something that...
Well, I actually really wanted to ask you about this because Matteo has a stutter.
He does.
Now, you may not know this, but I have struggled with a profound stutter all of my life. Hours and hours of speech therapy. And it is so rare to have a romantic hero that stutters. It just won my heart straight away.
Oh,
so
that's lovely.
I was wondering where that came from.
The real Matteo had a stutter. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And he was just adorable.
Yeah.
And I was with a group of women. We all just fell in love with Matteo instantly. He was just, and we were at a goat farm and he was so beautiful with the goats, and I was just like, wow, you're gorgeous. So yeah, but that's the great thing about being a writer is you can take these tiny little sparks, meet people for these tiny amounts of times, and then just sort of, grow them into something real inside your mind.
Yeah, that's right. Probably, the real Matteo would not recognise himself in yours.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And what about Lara?
Lara was so some of my characters come kind of fully formed. So Maria in The Beekeeper's Secret, which was the book before this, just turned up. And I wish that happened every time because it's so easy when that happens.
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't
Yes, she just turned up and she had a big story to tell and I just had to sit there and write it. So that was beautiful. But mostly they it's a slow, it's sketchy and then you go back and fill in more details and you learn more about them. And it's one of the most exciting things about writing for me is when they start to speak without you trying to conjure what they're saying.
And once that happens, all you need to do is kind of run along behind them and write down what they say and what they do. They've really come to life in your imagination. And I think that's when they come to life on the page. Don't you think so?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then you begin to love them yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think people can tell that you love your own characters. Just
I do.
because they do as well.
I feel very protective of them.
So can you tell us a little bit about your path to publishing?
In 1999, I went to a workshop with the Queensland Writers Centre and I was a teacher at the time and I remember thinking, this is absolutely it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be a career author. And so then I wrote non-stop for 12 years and wrote 10 manuscripts. I did lots and lots of short stories to begin with, which is, I think, such a great foundation in developing writing skills and finding your voice. And then went on to full-length manuscripts. And so the 10th one was the tea chest and that one was picked up.
Oh, that is a wonderful story. So many authors, have a similar story where they've got a bottom drawer full of manuscripts, and that's where they learn their craft.
Absolutely.
They make all their mistakes.
It's your university degree.
It is.
For free.
Right.
You obviously sent the manuscripts off to publishers and went through the old rejection process.
Yeah, I did, and I did that over that sort of 12 years, and I had a spreadsheet of all my rejections to make sure I hadn't.
Wow.
And when I got to 100, I just looked at it and I went, this is depressing, and I deleted it. I had this manuscript, I was pregnant with my son, and I really wanted it to get out into the world somehow. And I have no real way to explain this, but I went to sleep and I woke up one morning and I heard the words, email Monica McInerney. And I thought, wow, that's really random.
I've got goosebumps.
Yeah.
So did I.
We love that kind of story, because that's the sort of thing that happens to us all the time.
Beautiful. And I'd never met Monica, a huge fan. I was reading one of her books at the time. And I emailed her and she was so very, very generous and she said, send me your manuscript and I'll pass it to my agent, which she did, and that was that.
Oh, that is wonderful.
That's a great story. I love
Yeah.
that. And it's very inspiring, I think, for all the other writers out there who are going through the same process.
Yeah, it does take, I always believe in sort of Oprah's definition of luck, which is just doing all that hard work and meeting the opportunity.
Yeah, so when the opportunity comes, you're ready for
Yes,
it.
exactly.
It's very much that notion of focus, isn't it? If you focus on it, then it manifests.
And if you hadn't done, those 10 manuscripts in those many years, you wouldn't have been ready for it when the time came. So
Yeah.
you deserve it.
Thank you.
Yes,
Although with a
absolutely.
6-week-old baby, I don't think I was ready at all, but
My
we got there.
first book was published when I was pregnant as well, and then I had to go and go on tour, and I had a 3-week-old baby. So it was,
There you go. I think actually, and I have seen it, this happen to a lot of us, and I think it's something about that massive creative kind of energetic state you're in that tips it over the edge for some
so
people.
fascinating. All this talk about escaping to Tuscany, I think I really need to escape and go and look after our dinner. Just give me a moment and I'll come and serve it all for you.
I'm starving.
Yeah,
Sounds
fantastic.
great.
So what about when the character's not fully formed? How do you approach it?
The only way I can ever find my characters or my story is by writing. So I will do practice scenes with a character early on and I'll just sort of move them around and get them to do things and hear what they're saying and try out some speech. And that's generally just sort of, it's quite an organic sort of thing. But sometimes, yeah, I just scrap people because they're just not working and not flowing. But generally I find they're in that sort of second draft is where I know where they're going, I know where they've come from, and then I have a richer understanding of them, and so their personality sort of solidifies.
What about Dave, your kind of villain of the story? How does his...
That's what I was going to say. You know, he's very dark.
Yeah.
But they say that 1 in 25 people are psychopaths, and
Yeah.
of those, men outnumber women 4 to 1.
Yeah.
And obviously, one woman is killed every week in Australia through domestic violence. So this is, ladies and gentlemen, is where it gets dark.
Yeah.
And so, when you were researching that character, how did you go about that?
Well, it was funny because when I eventually decided, because, you know, I said that I tried not to go there and I went into a different direction. And then when I decided, okay, yes, that was where I needed to go, quite quickly, sort of about 3 times in the space of a week, somebody mentioned something to me along those lines. And it was like I just sort of tapped into, okay, it was a sign, that was absolutely what I needed to be researching. It sort of just took me into, I listened to a podcast, I thought I was listening to something else, but it was actually about the profile of the psychopath. And, you know, I had 2 good friends who'd been through domestic violence, so they were very brave and shared a lot of stuff with me. And that was one of the things that made it tricky to write as well, because I was very conscious about that and not wanting to upset them and being quite careful about that. So yeah, I did a lot of online research, spoke to obviously people who'd been through it, and it was amazing. Yeah, as I said, once I decided that I would go in that direction, things just fell into place and kept turning up at the right time.
That's always how you know that you've actually made the right choice, is when the writing suddenly becomes easy.
Yes.
And when it gets more and more and more difficult, that's when you know that you've made the wrong choice.
Yeah, I think so. The doors just open and open and open.
Yeah. So Jo, what was it like to actually go inside the head of a dark character like Dave? You know, did he give you nightmares?
Actual nightmares.
Wow.
I did actually wake my husband up one night having a nightmare and calling out, help me, help me. It was one of the reasons I didn't want to go into the area to begin with, because I knew that for my character to feel the pain, I would need to feel the pain as well.
So true, isn't it? You know, we inhabit our characters and they inhabit us. And so when they're, you know, terrifying and dark, you know, like Dave is, it leaches over, doesn't it?
It does. It did. And but I think having come through it, like there were definitely moments where I just thought, oh, I don't know if I can keep writing this. But I think having gone through it, again, it's made me a stronger writer, knowing that I can face that and get through it as well.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about some of the challenges of writing this book, but there's so much that is beautiful and joyous and you know, bright in this book as well. I really love the way that everyone came together and was healed through the agency of eating together, of feasting together, and of uncovering secret from the past. What was the most joyous moment for you in writing this book?
I think discovering the book in Tuscany, because when I went there, I was working on something that wasn't working. I had 50,000 words of a book that I'd been struggling with, and just giving myself permission to just let it go and just follow the curiosity of who was that old man in the street and where was that going to go. And then, you know, all the food research is, you know, I had to spend hours and hours and hours poring over recipe books and Pinterest.
Eating for research.
Yes, eating for research. And that's always one of the most fun parts of my books.
Of course.
And I look back on, because I'd spent about 8 months or something with these 50,000 words that weren't working, and I thought at some point I should have realised, you know, this is too hard, it's something wrong.
Oh, yeah.
So again, hopefully I learnt that lesson now. And
yeah, but the next book you learn a different lesson.
Yes.
That's what it's all
That's what
about.
people keep telling me.
Well,
yes.
Jo, it has been such a pleasure
Thank
to
you.
have you here tonight.
Thank
you so much.
you.
We hope the 3 gold coins does brilliantly well for
Thank
you.
you.
So thank you for coming. And thank you to everyone out there for joining us once more at Word of Mouth TV. We hope that you love 3 gold coins as much as we did. And we hope that you get to cook an amazing Tuscan feast. As always, the recipes are on our website. Go and check it out. Thank you and bye-bye. See you next time. Bye. Bye.
Well, it's that time when we talk about the best book that we read lately. And right now I have Josephine Moon here, the author of 3 Gold Coins. And yes, and we're eating Orange Blossom Amaretti, which Kate has baked, our wonderful cook here. And on that note, I'm just going to talk about my favourite book read probably in the last year. It's a long one. It's one of those classics that I've been meaning to read for ages. It's My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. And like all Daphne du Maurier, it's very ambiguous. It's very hard to know, even at the end, who is the villain and who is the hero. Yeah, so that's my favourite book read lately. And Josephine?
My favourite book I've read lately is The Music Shop by Rachel Joyce. And it's kind of dystopian, actually. It's sort of set in England in the 80s and under Margaret Thatcher, and lots of industrial things going on and towns breaking down. And yet within that sort of very bleak community, you've got these beautiful seeds of sort of hope and love and friendship that just sort of blossom within sort of all the ruin going on around it, which is incredibly skillful, I think, and I really loved it. It's my first book of hers, but I'll definitely be going back for more.
Sounds wonderful. I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, she wrote The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry.
Of course, I thought I knew the name.
Yes.
All right, so the best book that I have read recently is called And Fire Came Down by Emma Visgic. She's an Australian author, and this is a contemporary crime novel set in Australia. It's incredibly intense, fast-paced, full of twists and turns and surprises, and it has at its heart a really engaging detective. He's actually deaf, and this makes him so vulnerable. He can't hear someone coming up behind him in a dark alley. He can't hear if someone has a beard or looks down or is speaking in a quite kind of muffled monotone. So he's trying to investigate this murder of a young woman, and all the time he's struggling with the fact that he is actually, deaf in a world where everyone else can speak and understand. I thought this was an absolute humdinger of a novel, and I'm so searching out her first book, which is called Resurrection Bay, to read as well. That's my recommendation for this week.
For my cookbook recommendation this weekend, I'm going to choose Delicious Home Cooking. I have a subscription to Delicious magazines, and I just love the food. I usually find several recipes out of every magazine that I buy.
I'm recommending Jamie Oliver's Jamie's Italy. I used this book as significant research for 3 Gold Coins, and it lived beside my bed for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I read it twice over. And it's sort of a book that's quite brutal in a lot of ways, because it really looks very deeply at our relationship with food and the land and the animals that give us food, but it's as equally beautiful as brutiful, as Glennon Doyle would say.
I love that word, brutiful.
Yes, brutiful.
Yeah.
So my cookbook is actually called Venezia, and it did have, until very recently, an absolutely gorgeous cover, but my puppy Laura ate it this week, and so you have to see it without the beautiful cover. But I will show you some of the beautiful images inside it. These are all Italian recipes inspired by a life in Venice, which is one of my favorite places in the world. So it's a really beautiful book. It's as much a pleasure to look at the pictures as it is to actually try and cook the recipes. And Laura seemed to think it was quite delicious as well.
Yes. Right, well that's it for now, folks. And yes, if you want to find out more about these marvellous recipes that we've cooked tonight, or about our book recommendations, go to our website at wordofmouthtv.com.au.
Bye!
Bye!
Thanks for joining us.
And if you want to enter our giveaway,
Or know more about our fantastic prizes,
or try any of our delicious recipes,
or check out our news, views and reviews,
then just go to our website at wordofmouthtv.com.au.
see you next time.